States, because when the New Madrid fault goes, and that's what the Zetas say. This is a series of events. First, Japan is rocked by a series of 8+ earthquakes. So this is one. And then the New Madrid fault goes, and then the Atlantic rift widens, and that sends a tsunami across the middle of England and wipes out Denmark.
Well, and when that goes, who knows what's going to happen? Stick with us. We're going to be back in a moment. We're going to take your phone calls on Coast to Coast AM. And again, I want to thank all of you who stayed with us throughout the night as we had our continuing coverage of this incredible earthquake and tsunami that hit the northeast coast of Japan. I'm George Norrie, back in a moment on Coast to Coast AM. Well, next hour, astrologer Mark Lerner joins us as we get his take on this earthquake, followed then by open lines on Coast to Coast AM. And we'll be back in a moment, and we'll take your phone calls right here on Coast to Coast AM. And welcome back. We're with Gordon Gianniotto. We're going to take phone calls with you now for the rest of this half hour. Gordon, but you believe this is going to be continuing. Now, how long will it last? Are we talking years throughout the Mayan calendar date, or is it going to end?
Well, I can't give you an exact date, but I can say that more and more people are taking pictures of the sun that show at the left at sunrise and to the right at sunset, Planet X next to the sun. And a new technique that was just invented the other day was photographing it reflected in water. Somebody in Puerto Rico took a picture of it that came out quite clear, reflected in a swimming pool. And then he tried it the next day, reflected in the windshield of a car. And it's so close to the sun right now that you should not try to look at it with your naked eyes. But when it stands separate enough from the sun that you can look at it with your naked eye and the whole world realizes that it's there, mark that day, because it will be 7.3 weeks until pole shift.
All right, good point. Let's go to Osaka, Japan. First-time caller David's with us. Hey, David, go ahead. How are you?
Hello, George. I just wanted to ring in to send a message from Japan here.
Well, thank you.
Luckily, Osaka hasn't been too badly affected, but I was in work when in a tall office building when the earthquake happened, and the building really shook quite a lot. But we haven't had as bad effects as the people up the north of the island. So I just wanted to say I emailed you before about the prayer list, and
yes.
I think that does a lot of good.
It sure does.
I want to say thanks very much for that, and maybe anyone listening there, if they can send their best wishes or prayers to the people of Japan, I think it'd be much appreciated.
I guess the big concern now, David, the nuclear power plants and the possibility of a meltdown. What do you hear about that out there?
Yeah, well, the Japanese media is very controlled, and they don't usually give the information out directly. They usually hear about it after the fact. But in this situation, I think they're being relatively truthful and putting the information out. What we've heard so far is that the design of the plant is fundamentally different to the one to the Russian design in Chernobyl. So they say, in theory, it shouldn't be able to explode like Chernobyl. But on the other hand, this plant in Fukushima is one of the largest nuclear plants in the world. So if this does explode, it's a really big issue.
Absolutely devastating. David, our prayers to all of you out there.
All right. Thanks very much, George.
All right. Absolutely. Next up, we'll go to Ruth in Bremerton, Washington. Ruth, you're on with us. Hi, Ruth.
Hi, sir.
Hi, welcome.
I have a question. I kind of missed your qualification for answering this question, so I'm sorry if it's wrong. But since February, there's been a series of 3.2, 2.9 earthquakes in Arkansas, just in Arkansas.
Yeah,
in the United
they've
States.
had well over 800 swarms out there.
So what does that mean? Is it going to something big coming over there?
Well, what do you think of that, Gordon?
That is part of the New Madrid fault. That's one of the states that are going to be desperately affected. And we're talking 30 to 40 million people that might be homeless because they're going to have a quake on the scale of the Japanese quake, not the Christchurch, New Zealand quake. So this is going to be a subsidence, and it's going to. The Mississippi ran backwards the last time it happened, And this time it might even have an infusion of salt water as far as southern Ohio.
Okay, so thank you. So if it's happening now since February on a consistent basis, does that mean it could be soon that happens?
Yes, there's no particular date that can be given for it, but it's trying to loosen up and happen right now. So yeah, I would say that anyone that lives in that area has to be very interested in this exercise on April 28th. And the thing is that if you look at the whole picture of the United States, what has the government done about this problem? And basically, as far as I can see, and I may be wrong, but nothing is my opinion. And in China, they built entire ghost cities. They're ready to move people back from the coast up into these completely brand new everything, parks, civic centers, apartment buildings, stores, strip malls. They've been planning for years, and these are sitting there empty right now.
Yeah, empty cities, brand new, right?
Yeah, totally brand new. Many of them, for millions of people. And we're going to practice duck, cover, and stay, which means dive under your desk and wait until the dust settles. Well, most of the damage and deaths in earthquakes is from poorly constructed buildings. So you have Japan, which obviously has the most modern earthquake-designed buildings, including the nuclear reactors, of any place on Earth. And you have the Deep South in the United States, where these are brick buildings from the Civil War. They're not going to survive. There are very few earthquake-proof buildings anywhere in the New Madrid Fault area. So this is going to be a major disaster.
No, there's no question about it. And the big concern right now, the meltdown of nuclear power plants in Japan specifically, they are looking at one big one. And, of course, tragically, Japan, of course, knows full well about radiation leaks and radiation itself with what happened during World War II at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. If there is a major radiation leak out there, Gordon, do you know by any means how far will that affect people? Would that engulf the entire country of Japan? Would it engulf other areas there? Would it get as far? Would the radiation get as far as here? I think it could.
Well, it definitely could, because this is a big reactor. This is not some small thing. Just like you said, there's 5 reactors in 2 facilities. So this is something that could get very large. But I will say that the Zetas have never mentioned any nuclear disasters, and what they have said is that they've actually neutralized most nuclear weapons. And when people get upset that we're giving up our nuclear weapons or whatever, they say that they've already contacted all the military leaders that have nuclear weapons and said, listen, you're just not going to use them, and we're going to clean it up if there's something that happens. So I don't know how it's going to happen, but I do have a lot of faith, because if there is a state-of-the-art nuclear reactor, it's those that are in danger right now. And they are much different than Chernobyl, and they can be cooled. And that's the main problem is the diesel backup generators failed. And they have to have a lot of electricity to cool those buildings. And I have to think that the United States is sending every expert we have over there right now. And the Japanese are no slouches. They have all the equipment and experts. So I do think this will be resolved, and it won't result, but I don't know if they'll ever open again.
It makes you think twice about the use of nuclear power and where you put these plants.
Well, to put it on the edge of a plate, no matter who thinks that's a good idea.
Doesn't make any sense.
New York on the Hudson River with Indian River. It's right there on.
Yeah.
When you have a big river, you have a crack in the earth.
Same on the West Coast. I think they've got some plants right on fault lines too.
Exactly, and they're going to be. Listen, San Francisco and Oakland, you can just kiss them goodbye when the plate slides under the North American plate, because they're very low to the water. There's nowhere for them to go, and when they fracture, all the pieces are just going to settle because there's nothing of any elevation.
I'm sure if they get to the point where they go down there and take pictures on the ocean floor, they're going to see some incredible things, aren't they?
Well, that's the thing, is that the plate, the Pacific plate, is going to slide under the plates on both sides of it, and that's going to